We're going to call a meeting of the Board of Supervisors and the Redevelopment Authority to order. Today is Thursday. If you can't hear me, I should do that so you can hear me do that. Today is Thursday, July 2nd, 2020. It's just 8:30 a.m. We're in the Community Center at the Sierra Room at 851 East William Street. We're also streaming on the internet, and if you get charter cable, we're on the public access channel. Can we get a roll call just for the record here, please?
Supervisor Giomi.
Here.
Supervisor Bankowski.
Here.
Mayor Kroll.
Here.
Supervisor Barrett.
Here.
Supervisor Bagwell.
Here.
A quorum's present.
We call our good friend Pat Propster to get us started today. Thank you, Pat.
Mayor, Board, staff, good morning.
Good morning.
I was thinking this morning, because we've been through so much in Nevada over the past several years, and now we're where we're at. Where to go with Scripture. So there was a hashtag that was put out a few years back, Nevada Strong. Well, as I was thinking about Nevada Strong, what would be a good word to go along with that for Carson? It would be Carson Courage. So,
Good for you. Good.
give this to you, Mayor.
All right.
Hand these out.
We'll hand them out. Thank you.
And
Hey, that's great.
The scripture this morning that I want to go to is Joshua. Joshua was second in command to Moses. They'd gone through a terrible time. There was a deliverance. They were free. The people of Israel were free. They were wandering, but they were free. They were going to go into the land that was promised them, and it still was going to come with some additional trouble. So there was a second thing that they had to do. And like Nevada Strong, there's always the next thing that we have to do. So we're going to go into phase 2 and have Carson Courage. The Lord told Joshua, be strong and be of good courage. Be strong and be of good courage. Have I not commanded you, be strong and of good courage? Do not be afraid nor dismayed, for the Lord your God is with you wherever you go. This morning, Lord, we come before you, and I just ask you for Nevada Strong and hashtag Carson Courage. That, Lord, you would give our mayor, our board, staff, all those leading this state, wisdom, encouragement. Lord, that there would not be fear, there would be encouragement, not discouragement. Lord, that there would be reasonability when it comes to making decisions. Lord, our greatest little city in the country has just been through so much, and Lord, I just ask you that you would take us into this next phase of life. No matter what it be, Lord, with our heads high, that we would be Nevada proud, we would be Nevada strong, but we would be filled with Carson Courage. So Lord, bless this day, bless the decisions that would be made. Bless our future, bless the future of this country, bless the future of this globe, Lord. We ask you for a cure for this pandemic. Lord, I ask you for a vaccine that would come out. Lord, and I've been praying specifically that vaccine be found in Israel. In Jesus' name.
In Jesus' name.
Amen.
Well, Pat, I don't know how you do it, but you always have the right words to say. And we want to thank you on behalf of a grateful community. You always get us started off on the right foot. And I should ask you, how are your parishioners doing? They holding up?
They're doing well. I mean, it's a struggle for us, but things are going well, and we're doing as much as we can to help them out with the benevolence needs and things like that. And that's kind of our prayer, is that we would get through this thing, we would see the things recovered. But they're doing well, and they're in prayer for each one of you folks. I'm telling you, we pray a lot for you all.
Thank you, Pat. Thank you very much. Would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Thank you again, Pat.
Have a great day.
All right. We talk here. We're now at item number 5, public comment. Anybody on public comment?
Mr. Mayor, we do have 2 people. We have number 775-220.
Okay.
775-220, it is your turn for public comment. Please state your name for the record.
Good morning, supervisors and everybody else. This is Joanna Kaiser from Carson City, Nevada.
Good morning, Joanna.
Good morning. Hey, I just wanted to start by, of course, thanking you for all of you do and for keeping us safe and healthy, doing all you can during this pandemic. And I love the inspiring prayer at the beginning. Thank you so much. And I just think that I agree with you, Mayor. It's a great way to start our day and get us out on the right foot. So thank you for that. That was very inspiring. I just wanted to update you because all of you know you've been hearing from us about the booster pump station behind our home. So we sent an email to all of you. So if you want to see the images of it in the letter that I'm just going to read for public comment, which will take a few minutes. I'm just going to read the letter, so it's for public comment, and I emailed the letter to all of you with the images of the pump station. Of course, greetings, Carson City Supervisors, and again, thank you for all you do as elected officials. I wanted to be sure you saw for yourself the images of the pump station that has been the cause of so much discussion since January when work was started behind our home. It was put up last week, and it continues to be under construction behind our home. They're not quite finished. We've been in contact with Dan Stuckey, who is working to ensure that there are 5 Norway spruce trees planted. Hopefully next week, Mr. Stuckey and Mr. Schultz assured us that these trees would be at least 10 feet high at this time. So they're going to plant them as large trees to ensure most of the structure is hidden, not as much as possible, with the evergreen trees. And if you pull up your email, you'll see the first 2 images shows the commercial structure, of course, 30 feet behind our fence line. The third image shows the 800 square foot structure, again, 30 feet behind our fence line. And you'll see it up. I'm sure most of you have seen this, hopefully. It's up on the earthen platform, which makes it even higher than the land around it, and directly behind homes. We've been getting lots of comments from people who see it. You can also see in the next picture, it extends above the fence line. You can see the structure anywhere from the back of our house and our backyard. It's in full view everywhere. The next picture shows the expansive space that extends, because we're an open space neighborhood. It's an open space neighborhood, no permanent structures except the pump station directly behind our home. You have all heard our concerns on several occasions over the last 6 months as we have come to you expressing our concerns about the structure. You also know that the Planning Commission revoked the city's request because they wanted it to be 19 feet. Thankfully, the Planning Commission did not allow that. And of course, as you know also, the Planning Commission brought up discussion to revoke the whole permit when they saw what was being built behind our home. But of course, they couldn't do that because it already had the special use permit. So we came to you again in April after the Planning Commission meeting, and Supervisor Giomi and Mayor Cole told us that you guys weren't going to provide any more money to move the structure or lower it. And so, as you know, and I said before, a picture is worth 1,000 words. So I wanted you to see the actual structure now that it's up. And as you know, and I'm just going to summarize the concerns, my main concern, of course, is that the structure goes against the city's own codes and ordinances. For example, it states in the special use permit that the general neighborhood and that the structure will be compatible with and preserves the character and integrity of the adjacent development. But again, the structure is the only structure built behind a private home in the whole development. And under question 2 in the special use document, it says it won't be detrimental to the use, the peaceful enjoyment, economic value, or development of the surrounding properties. And of course, we're very concerned because everybody that sees it, first thing they say is, what is this going to do to your property value? That's the first thing out of their mouth. The picture also shows the last thing, again, directly from the permit. It states Carson City has come up with mitigation measures to eliminate any detrimental effects to adjacent properties, and the project will not be prejudicial or infringe on property rights of any surrounding properties. And again, the city built this directly only behind our home. As I was reading the Nevada Appeal last week, because you know I'm a Nevada Appeal girl, love the Nevada Appeal, I saw that Senator Rosen and Senator Cortez Masto were supporting a Carson City land bill with the goal of spurring economic development and funding conservation and restoration projects. This is exciting news for me as a citizen of Carson City, and I was excited to read about that. However, my hope is in future projects that the Board of Supervisors will be able to provide oversight for these projects to ensure private property owners do not have their private property rights negatively affected by decisions that the city and the board made. I am sad to say in our situation that the Board of Supervisors allowed this project to go ahead, even with legitimate concerns from homeowners as stated above, and as you know, for the last 6 months. I hope that the board never again allows a project that goes against the city's own codes and ordinances. Sincerely, Reed and Joanna Kaiser. And as you know, I am not, or maybe you don't know, I am not a person who harbors grudges, and I know that all of us are doing the best we can in these difficult situations. So I just want you to know that I'm thankful for your service. I'm thankful for all you do, and it just saddens me that this happened, and I'm shocked by it, as you know. I'm shocked that this happened in my beloved Carson City, but when I see that more funding is being provided to the city, I just hope this never, ever happens to another homeowner. So that's the end of my public comment.
I didn't hear the last part. Let me see.
I said that's the end of my public comment, and thank you for all you do.
Thank you, Joni. Thanks for the public comment this morning. It's another way to get us started, to go on getting the good and the bad and whatever else it is there. But thank you very much for being a great citizen of our community here. To you and your husband and all you folks who live up there, thank you very much for that. Let me ask, is there, I'll get you, Barbara. Anybody else online? Desi, who's back there?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, we have 775-291. 775-291, it is your turn for public comment. Please state your name for the record. Seven 775-291, it is your turn for public comment. Please state your name for the record. Mr. Mayor, 775-291 has exited the conference. With your permission, I'll move on to the next.
Okay, move.
775-885, it is your turn for public comment. Please state your name for the record.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
For the record, this is Mike Jones. Morning. This is Mike Jones. I'm the current board chair of the Carson City Culture and Tourism Authority. And I wanted to take a couple minutes of your morning to talk about tourism and the role of the CTA and the Visit Carson City staff. And I think in the last year, Dave Peterson, the director, and the staff at Visit Carson City has made great strides in how we think of tourism in general, and specifically as it relates to arts and culture in our community. You know, one of our goals this past year was to build a digital presence around our personality in Carson City and talk about our amenities, our attractions, and as well as the arts and culture, as well as our history. You know, our brand pillars, which are really our guiding principles, speak directly to arts and culture. The first one of those is our rich history, and that it's important to us, and we're proud to put those stories at the forefront for our visitors to discover. And the second is that our heritage and cultural influence. You know, we're lucky that from modern to historic, Carson City puts on wonderful displays of arts and culture and continues to foster that within the community. And third, we're an inclusive community, that we celebrate progress within the community, that we take pride in our quality of life, that we're open to bringing in all types of events and visitors with open arms, really. And I like to think of, if you're a visitor, you're a friend here in Carson City. At Visit Carson City, you know, I think I understand that arts and culture is important to the residents of our community, and even more important to our visitors. You know, when visitors come to Carson, they usually think they usually come for one of our core offerings, be that a sporting event or outdoor activities. But after a while, they start looking for additional things to do and see. And that's where I believe that arts and culture play a pivotal role in promoting cultural tourism. we have a story to tell here in Carson, and arts and culture play a large part of that story. Blending different events, I think is important moving forward in the future. One example of what Visit Carson City is doing to bring together different types of events and visitors to our community will take place next year, actually in September of 2021. We've got two very different events scheduled on the same weekend. We have the Statina's Pater Carson City Gravel Grinder Bike Race. That's a mouthful. Event, along with, in conjunction with the Silver State Art Festival. Two very different events, but give our visitors two fun, very family-friendly events to take in. And we're going to continue to look to cross-promoting similar shared event weekends in the future. So I don't want to take up too much of your time. I just want to finish and say that Visit Carson City and the CTA staff and the Culture Commission are working cooperatively together with the city on a transition plan for the City Arts and Culture Program. We're excited about the possibilities of what that's going to look like and achieve in the future. And lastly, I just wanted the board and the public to know that we're all very supportive of all arts and culture in Carson City. And I just wanted to make that point and give you a little update on the CTA, and thank you for letting me take up some of your time this morning.
Well, Mike, thank you for those kind words, and I think, those are words that our community wants to hear, and I know you folks over at the CTA are doing as best you can to make things work, and, you're part of a great community here, and we're even a greater community because of you folks there. So pass that on to your staff. And, if there's anything we need, we'll do stuff over here on this side. But if there's something you think we should be doing, talk to the city manager or the deputy, and then we'll go forward. But it's a good message you had this morning on arts and culture. It's good. It's very good. Let me ask you another question while you're on the phone. How's your business doing out there on reopening for the gaming, lodging? What's going on?
The opening has gone well. I mean, it certainly hasn't gone without some hiccups. Our lodging has come back a little slower than we thought, along with our food and beverage operation. But overall, we've been pleased. Hopefully, we can get through the phase 2 and on to phase 3, and everyone's safe. But overall, like I said, not without its setbacks, but I think we're doing well.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Anybody got any questions? John Barrett? Hang on, Mike. We got a question from Supervisor Barrett.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a point and ask Mike if he agrees with that. When we use the term culture, it seems to me that encompasses all of these things: sporting events, art, other kinds of events. That's the way I look at our culture here in Carson City. Is that the view of the CTA?
Oh, absolutely, John. It all plays a part, and it's all part of what we are here in Carson City, and blending those and making those all more accessible to everyone, including the residents and the visitors. That's our goal. But
Thank you.
You're absolutely right. It's all part of our culture.
Okay, anybody else? All right, Barb, I think it's time for you to come up and follow on arts and culture. Come on up.
Sure will. I hope Mike stays online there so he can hear what I have to say too. For the record, my name is Barbara Dineo. I am the current chair of the Cultural Commission, which was established by the Board of Supervisors, and we have been working on arts and culture in this town. A couple of things I want to say first. I want to say a thank you to Mark Salinas for the 3.5 years that he spent with us to lay the groundwork, to put down on paper all of the building blocks for us to begin to really look at who are we, where are we going, what do we want to be now that we're grown-ups. And, it's unfortunate that this all happened at a very difficult moment in time, but then it has its positives too. We want to say thank you to the hotel owners, the CTA, the motel hotel owners, for the 1% room tax that they have provided for the last 3.5 years for a total of another year to come in order to have the funds to hire a person, a coordinator to put this program together. It's very wide and very diverse in terms of arts and culture. What on earth does that mean? So we need to define, we think, the members of the Arts and Culture Commission, looking at what is important for us here in Carson. We met with Ms. Paulson, Ms. Hicks, Mr. Giomi, Karen Aboud, myself, David Peterson, and Mike Jones. I thought it was a very productive meeting to begin to look at what are we doing and what do we need to do in the future and who's going to pay for it. Where is the money coming from? That's the bottom line, is where is the money going to come from? Well, in order for people to put up funding, they need to get something in return. So I've had extensive conversations with Mr. Peterson, who, by the way, is terrific at his job. And he's very supportive of the arts, and we will continue working together. We're going to explore opportunities for funding the arts and culture. We're going to look at implementing the master plan. Luckily and happily, we have those articles in place, the master plan, you know, sort of the where are we going and how will we get there. And in my conversations with David, I said, look, back up, square one. Let's look at the vision for Carson City. It's not just a place to come and look at buildings and then go off to some other place in northern Nevada to experience arts and culture. But what do we mean by that? And we have a huge cultural diversity group already in Carson City, CCAI for one, who does these photographs you're looking at. They do a marvelous job in this town. Now that's internal. How do we bring the public into Carson City to fulfill a need for folks in utilizing beds to attend various social, cultural, artistic events, not just riding bikes, but why would they come here? A place like Nevada City, a place like Crested Butte, Colorado, they have artist colonies, and people come from all over the world. We could also, if we have a plan put together, have in one of the hotels, or all of them, art that could be hung. We could be having a trio that play in the cocktail hour or someplace, but somehow we have to give back to the hotels and the motels some bang for their buck. And that 1% room tax is critical if we are going to have a program, because I know the city is not in a place to provide the funding at this point in time, but if we have enough in terms of the public coming, I think that's going to change our story. We have internal publics and we have external publics. So I'm looking at a mission for all the groups to get together to say, where do we want to be in the next 5 years? Who are we? Who, what, where, when, why? And how? And who's going to be in this position? Can't be a person who comes in, does an event, and leaves. We need to have someone in place who is looking at supplying events, supplying diversity, encouraging folks to come to this town and have a well-rounded artistic and cultural program for this city. I think it can be done. The members of the commission think it can be done. But diversity needs to play a role here. And as of right now, who's coming and how do we know who's coming and what kind of records are we keeping to know who's experiencing Carson City and for what reason? So those are the parameters I've put out with David that we need to look at going forward in the future. Not all folks are happy to have seen Mark leave, but the reality is he has. And we look to today and tomorrow in terms of where do we want to go, how do we want to get there, who's going to pay for it, and how is it going to be marketed, and et cetera, et cetera. And the commissioners are of a body in sync with these ideas, and especially want to work with the CTA to figure out a path that we can go on so we're not stumbling on each other's toes or in competition. That shouldn't be happening. So I am speaking for myself personally, that I'm willing to put the effort out there to work on this. And let me tell you, it's a lot of effort at this point in time. But the city, in your master plan, you have your highest priorities. Arts was number 15, with only streets and the fire stations above that. So it says you all care, and it says we all want to get there, but it's the how we're going to do it, but most importantly, who is going to pay for it and who is going to do the work. So I'm here to tell you that we are most anxious to work with you. We have the opportunity now to fix little parts and pieces to make it a more workable and happy experience. I especially want to thank the redevelopment board for their $25,000 that the Cultural Commission has gotten annually to award to specific programs and artists in town, and that will become more diversified as we move on, because that is what the redevelopment funds were all about. So I want to thank you for your time, and I look forward to working with the CTA, Mr. Peterson, Mr. Jones, with Stacy and/or whomever you appoint to serve on a committee to work this out. Any questions?
I don't have any, Barb, but maybe somebody else. Stacy, go ahead.
Yeah, we spent a lot of time on this already on a non-agendized item, so I won't take a bunch of time, but I echo Barb's thoughts and thank her for her time and Mike's as well. I think it always sort of confused me when I first got appointed to the CTA, how we had the CTA and we sort of had this cultural commission, and how the two of them were sort of doing parallel things, but in oftentimes diverse directions. And I'd really like to see that change, and which is what I said to Barb and the team. I think that we have an opportunity now to make that happen. Things are not moving quickly in this COVID time, so I think we have time to take a breath and do what we need to do, and try and find a way to make sure that these two organizations and the work that they represent, more importantly, continue in a way that makes it cooperative and beneficial to the community. And I believe that with the people we have in place right now, we can make that happen. So that's what I'll say, and I'll do everything I can as a member of the board, as this board's representative to the CTA to make that happen.
If there's any shining moment, it is auspicious that at this particular moment in time, we do have the time to stop, look, listen, regroup, rethink, and come out with a program that literally is going to draw the internal community. We only have an awful lot of people in Carson City, other than the art community, who are attending things, and we need them. And we need the external community, the public, to think that this is a place they want to put on their calendar to come and experience lots of different opportunities in Carson City. So again, Stacy, thank you, and yeah, we're willing to work on this, and I'm gonna go home and have coffee. Thank you.
Barb, let me say this, just in concluding. I've said it before, and I really do firmly believe this, that arts and culture are the adhesive and the glue that holds successful communities together, and so I'll just leave it at that. And yeah, I think that we all share that, the vision of how important arts and culture are. Yeah, we had some road bumps, but let's take this time to take a step back, look where we are, and go forward. And by the way, everything gets down to money. I don't know of anything that doesn't get down to money.
Well, there are a couple. Let's not go there. But there are a couple.
Not in this bailiwick.
But you're right. It comes down to money. Who pays, and what do you get for the amount of money that's invested in what we're doing in this town? And Lori, thank you, Ms. Bagwell, for your assistance in the past, and certainly look forward to your assistance in the future. And I know that you are a supporter of the arts, and I thank you for that. So thank you for your time, and we'll continue on.
Good. Thank you, Barb. All right. Any other public comment?
Mr. Mayor, we have Judge Thomas Armstrong.
Yep. Hey, Judge.
Mayor Kroll, can you hear me?
I can hear you, and congratulations for all you've done over there at the court system. You know, it's a huge step forward for our community, Judge. Well done. So I'm sure we're going to hear about it. We want to hear about it. So go.
Well, we have Mayor Kroll and supervisors. I thank you for taking the time to listen this morning. As you all are aware, but maybe the public isn't aware, we're celebrating our 5-year anniversary of the Misdemeanor Treatment Court program. Today, we're graduating 3 graduates. And I just wanted to take a moment to thank this body, to thank the supervisors for their support throughout the years. I also want to take the time to thank all the other agencies and people that have helped keep this program alive and help us serve our community. You know, I have one graduate today who has, I first met her, I prosecuted her. She was 18 years old and on a drug charge, and she was on juvenile probation. And I had a long talk with the juvenile probation officer, and it was, you know, her situation was terrible. And fast forward years later, and I came across her when I was a judge, and I just thought, I felt helpless, that there was nothing that I could not come up with something that could help her. I didn't have the tools to help her. And there's a handful of specific defendants that were the reason why I started exploring forming the Misdemeanor Treatment Court program, and she is one of them. And she came back to me later. We were able to get her in the program. She's graduating today. She went through the transitional housing program that was set up by Health and Human Services. That was a rousing success. She's a mother to her small child. She transitioned into independent living. She's working. She's back with the father of her child, and they have a family. And I could not be more proud of her, as I am of all of the graduates. So that's to point out that, you know, this is a team effort. And although, you know, you guys are there and I'm over here, you, the supervisors, are as big of a member of that team as anybody. And I want to thank you. Alternative sentencing, Health and Human Services, the Sheriff's Department, the Public Defender, the District Attorney's Office, and all the members of the community. You know, we've had 6 drug-free babies in the 5 years. We have 1 on the way. That alone is enough to justify all of the hard work and support into this program. So I thank you. I thank the community. I'm proud of what we're doing. I'm proud of where we're going. It is a 5-year anniversary. Hopefully this is a program that will be continuing to improve and going on long after I'm done heading it up. And I appreciate the thanks, Mayor, but it is a team effort. It is a community project that we can all be proud of. So you guys got work to do. I got a graduation to prepare for. I'm here to answer any questions, but I just wanted to take a minute to thank you guys once again for everything.
Anybody have any questions of the good judge? Well, Judge, thanks for thanks for all you guys folks do over there. And it reminds me of the old saying, changing lives one at a time, and we're changing lives for the better. We're loosening the load on our jail system and loosening we're doing the right thing by our community here. So on behalf of all of us, thanks again for everything, Judge. And I know we've already thanked you, but you deserve more. So
well, one of these days I'd like to have, thank you. One of these days I'd like to have the supervisors attend the graduation, but my graduations are always when you guys are having a meeting. So when we're all wearing masks, maybe I will have a graduation, if you guys will allow it, in front of the supervisors. I think that would be fantastic. And but we're a ways off from that yet. But it's something that it's inspiring. So thank you, Mayor. Thank you, everybody. Like I said, we've all got work. All got work to do. So enough of this. But I really appreciate everything, all the support throughout the years.
All right. I think you got a unanimous decision over here already. It's not a formal decision, but next time you do a graduation, let's see if we can do it over here in the boardroom.
That would be fantastic. Thank you.
All right, guys, all right. Any other public comment?
We have no one waiting in the WebEx.
Okay. Don't see any more public comments, so let's take up item 6, possible approval of the minutes of June 4th, 2020. Everybody had a chance to look at those? Motions in order.
I move to approve the minutes of the Carson City Board of Supervisors for June 4th, 2020 as presented.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. On the motion, discussion. Hearing and seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Carried. Okay, on item number 7, Dan, I understand we're pulling the appointments to the RTC. Do we need to, we're going to go through and open that up anyway, right?
Yes,
wanna
Mayor,
make sure.
so it was my understanding in discussions.
We're not
with the
gonna
city
change the
manager,
agenda on that.
We're not going to change, we're not going to pull or cancel the meeting for RDA today. We're still going to call that meeting to order. However, one item that's currently listed right now which is for action, and that's the appointment matter, will be pulled. So the only action item would be the adoption of minutes under.
Very good.
The rack.
RAC, I'm sorry. Got redevelopment on the brain here. Okay. Anybody else want anything changed from the agenda? Board members, we okay with what the discussion we just had? All right, so then without objection, we will adopt the agenda for today as published, and we'll now move on to the consent agenda. Everybody had a chance to look at the consent agenda. Does somebody want that pulled off, either online or here in the boardroom? Anybody? Okay, so we'll take the consent agenda. Looks like a motion's in order on that.
I move to approve the consent agenda as published.
There's a motion and a second. On the motion, discussion. Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Carried. All right, that concludes the consent agenda. Let's now move on to item number 12. This will be a recess of the Board of Supervisors. I'm going to turn the gavel over to the Chair of the Redevelopment Authority, Supervisor Bagwell, Mayor-elect Bagwell, I should say. So here you go. Get some practice.
This will be a short practice, okay. I call the meeting of the Redevelopment Authority to order. May I have a roll call, please?
Chair Bagwell,
Present.
Vice Chair Giume, Member Bonkowski, Member Barrett, Member Kroll.
Here.
A quorum's present.
Thank you, Tamara. Do I have any public comment for the Redevelopment Authority? Desi, is there anyone on the line?
Nope, there is no one waiting in the WebEx.
Thank you. We'll move on then to approval of the minutes of June 4th. Has everyone had an opportunity to review those? Any changes, anything? Then I'll take a motion, please.
Move to approve the redevelopment authority minutes for June 4th, 2020 is presented.
Second.
I have a motion and a second for the approval of the minutes of June 4th, 2020. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No one's opposed. Item 6, motion carried. Thank you. Item 16A, as previously stated, has been pulled. We had a slight error in the posting on the application, so we'll take that up at a future meeting. So we'll move on to item 17, which is final public comment for the Redevelopment Authority. Is there anyone on the line?
We have no one waiting on the line.
And I have no public comment in the room. Then if there's no objection, we will adjourn the Redevelopment Authority, and I'll pass the gavel back.
All right, thanks. All right, we're going to bring the board, we're going to reconvene the Board of Supervisors. We're going to take up item number 20. This is the sheriff. This is a presentation of a biannual report on the Carson City Jail conditions and information concerning deaths of prisoners within the jail. Jim, come on up. Who you got? You got some help there too. How you doing today? How's the community out there?
Doing great.
All right.
Doing great. We're hanging in there. We're busy, but
Thank you. So,
Let me
good morning,
say-
Mr. Mayor. Good morning, Board of Supervisors. Thank you for having us here today.
Go.
I'm here to report on the
You can
biannual.
take it fast down if you want to talk, if it's easier.
Okay, is that okay?
Yeah, sure.
All right.
There you go.
I'll be able to read too, now that my glasses aren't fogged up. The Nevada legislature enacted AB 301 during the 2019 legislative session to amend various provisions of NRS Chapter 211, which sets forth state statutes governing local facilities for detention. NRS 211.020, which makes the Board of Supervisors responsible for building, inspecting, and repairing any county jail, and also requires the board to inquire once every 3 months into the security of the jail and the treatment and condition of the prisoners, and to take all necessary precautions against escape, sickness, and infection, was amended to require the board to take precautions to prevent suicide and death. NRS 211.020 was further amended to require the board to review all available information concerning deaths of prisoners in the county jail, and at least twice each year to include as an item of the agenda of a public meeting consideration of the conditions of the jail and the number of deaths of prisoners and the known circumstances surrounding any such deaths. AB 301 also amended NRS 211.030 to require the sheriff to report to the Board of Supervisors the death of any prisoner in the jail not later than 48 hours of the occurrence. NRS 211.030 was further amended to require the sheriff to submit to the board a biannual report that contains aggregated data similar to the information that is required to be submitted to the Federal Death in Custody Reporting Act of 2013 concerning the deaths of prisoners in the jail during the immediately preceding 6 months and circumstances surrounding any such deaths. So this is our second meeting of the year. We met back in January. I just wanted to let you know that in this current 6-month period, January through June, we have no deaths to report. As you know, we would have done that within the 48 hours. Right now, the conditions of the jail, our inmate population is down. That is working with the courts, releasing some prisoners that were close to their release date or low-level charges, and that was because of the COVID pandemic. To maintain and ensure the safety and the health of not only the staff, but the inmates as well. We've also made some changes inside the jail as far as taking precautions, intake of prisoners. There's a questionnaire, temperature taking, quarantine procedures, and then like I said, overall, our inmate population is down right now. Recently, when we talk about conditions at a jail, and I know that Ron Reed is here and he can answer any questions about the actual building itself. We recently had an incident with an inmate that broke several windows in Mail General. The jail's 20-plus years old. It's the first time that's occurred. The staff inside responded and was there. We watched the videotape. They were within 20 seconds. He had already broke 4 windows. We're looking at an approximate cost of about $6,000 to $8,000. We're still waiting to hear back from Glass Company on that one.
Just a quick question on that. Dan or Nancy, do you know, is that covered by insurance?
I think it would probably be less than what our deductible is.
Okay. Go ahead, Jim. Sorry.
That's okay. No, so like I said, right now, other than that, the jail's running well. We've made adjustments to accommodate the COVID pandemic and making sure that everybody in the jail is safe. I know that with me here today is Lieutenant Earl Mays. He is our new jail commander, so he's actually in the jail and responsible for everything that goes on inside the jail. And then I know that online we also have Sheriff Furlong for if you guys have any questions at all.
Any questions? Anybody?
Mayor,
Brad, go ahead.
If I could just ask Officer Primka to officially state his name for the record.
Yes, Jim Primka.
Okay. Well, yeah, go ahead, Stacy.
Sorry.
Shoot.
Jim, can you just, I'm just curious, if you were to have to arrest someone who has active COVID, do you have the means to do that and keep them separated and quarantined, or does that pose a threat to the whole jail and the staff?
Yes, yes to both.
Okay. Yeah, well, I understand it does pose a threat, but I mean, do you have a way to?
We do.
Okay.
We do.
Just curiosity.
Yep, we have a quarantine process, and we quarantine people up to 14 days if they're in a high-risk category. If they have it. And if they have it, we have been working closely with the courts. We would be making phone calls, depending on the charges, we would try to come up with a alternative solution.
Right.
But if the charge was serious enough that they had to go to jail, we would be able to make accommodations for that.
Okay, thanks, good to know.
Brad, go ahead.
And going back to the broken windows, is that in a general population area or is that in a cell? It's in general population?
It is. It's male general. It's the windows that separate the hallway from the jail, that male general itself, which is our largest cell block.
So you're able to operate with those broken windows, or do you have to segregate that area off?
We are. So the inmates were locked down for a couple of days. Building maintenance, they take very good care of us. They came over and put in some temporary windows for now. Unfortunately, because of COVID, worldwide, as we're seeing things, we're running out. Like we ran out of toilet paper a while back. The glass companies are also behind the curve, and for whatever reason, they're a little behind. So we're looking at probably a couple of months until we can get them replaced. But we do have temporary barriers in there now, glass in there, so we're back to normal operations.
Okay, so no security concerns?
No security concerns right now, no.
All right, thank you.
No, sir.
Anybody else? John?
Was this safety glass, and will you replace it with safety glass, or it wasn't?
Yes, sir. It was safety glass, and we will replace it with safety
Thank
glass.
you.
Yep.
Anybody else? So Jim and Earl, these are difficult times, and particularly for those of you who are out on the streets, it's difficult times. I want to say thank you for everything you guys do, how you keep the peace without disturbing people's First Amendment rights. It's difficult, and pass on to your folks. Let's hope we have a safe, patriotic July 4th, and there's no incidents. So those folks who are coming into town, remember, this is Carson City. We're the state capital. We pride ourselves on being one community without ethnic or other dividing lines. And if you're here to protest, we welcome First Amendment, but we don't welcome damage. So thank you again. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. All right, let's go to Airport Authority. Do I have him on? Oh, is that Ken? Oh.
Yes, I am. Good morning.
Okay. Go ahead, Ken. Well, let me open this up. This is a discussion and possible action regarding a proposed approval and conditional acceptance of two 2020 federal aviation grants in the approximate amount of $1.5 million for the rehabilitation of runway 927, perimeter fence repair, and access gate upgrades. I don't know how you guys do it, but you get money all the time. How about coming down here and telling us how you do it? All right, go.
It involves a lot of begging and pleading, but we discussed this earlier in the year at a previous board meeting regarding the airport authority's airport capital improvement program, and both these items were listed on the program at the time. We went out to bid in April, and the bids were open, and the bid amounts exceeded the engineer and the independent estimates by a little bit, and so we had to sharpen our pencils with the contractor and see if we could revise those, but they still exceeded the estimate to the amount that we had to go back to the FAA and request additional funding. So right now they're scraping together some entitlement funds that weren't spent in the state. If those aren't spent at airports within the state within a certain period of time, they go back and do a pool, and that pool usually goes to the federal level unless they can be identified for projects within the state. So we've been able to capture that money and keep it here in Nevada, but most importantly, get it here in Carson City. I was in conversation with the FAA just yesterday, and the grant is probably going to be funded sometime later this month. There were two things they were waiting on. One was the agreements to transfer those funds to be used here in these two projects, and the other is they were waiting on the final letter for the environmental from the State Historical Commission, and those two items should be completed and the project's funded. The reason that we're asking for this to be approved by the board today is to ensure that once the grant documents have been submitted, that we have ample time. There's usually a short turnaround time to get those completed. and we want to make sure that we're in a position to execute that without waiting for another board meeting to be scheduled. So consequently, the Airport Authority Board on June 17th approved the tentative receipt of those grant funds. And so we're coming to the board today with a similar resolution. 1.5 million is probably on the high side, but we want to make sure that we had adequate cap for the approval of those two grants. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
One question I have, and then we'll if we're going to do rehab on 9 and 27, you're going to have to close the runway down?
There will be some minimal closure on that. The product that they use to put the fog seal on cures very quickly, so the closure should probably be a one-day event. As you recall, last year we did the taxiway projects, and that involved some work up next to the runway. And so what we did on those is that we closed it for about 6 or 8 hours during the day and then reopened it in the evening. So by coordinating with our tenant base, we made sure that people were aware and that they could depart prior to the runway closure and then plan their return to the airport when the runway reopened. So there's some minimal inconvenience, but we're going to try to minimize that by the night work. So if the grant gets funded and we can get on the schedule, the temperature issue won't come into play. If it gets pushed to later in the fall, which happened to us before, the temperature became an issue where you got to have a certain mean temperature during the period of time that you put the product down to ensure it cures. So, those are some scheduling challenges that we'll face. But overall, I think the impact will be minimal and the return on investment will be quite exceed that. One other quick point is that as part of the CARES funding legislation that the Federal Aviation Administration was part of, that those grants will not require a local match. So that's a significant savings to the airport in the neighborhood of 6.25% of the 1.5 million. So we're talking about another $70,000 in savings.
Good. Supervisor Bunkowski.
Good morning, Ken.
Good morning.
Do you have other outstanding grant applications or proposed grant applications for the balance of 2020 that you're anticipating?
The only grant that has not closed out is the master plan, and the master plan grant is almost completed. The last piece that we're waiting on that is the approval of the airport layout plan by the FAA. And I had a call with the airport district office about 2 weeks ago, and as you can imagine, everybody is slowed down in this process, but they have informed us that should be forthcoming, and that grant should be closed out. I think the amount of money that we haven't drawn down on that is nominal at this point, probably less than $7,000 or $8,000. The only other grant applications out there were the CARES Act grant that the Board of Supervisors approved acceptance of, and that was a $69,000 grant. We haven't received funding on that yet or the ability to draw down on that. And the purpose of that grant was to cover operating expenses during the shutdown of the business entities. The airport remained open, as you know, during the COVID stay-at-home order. But that's the only other two grants that are out there.
Okay. Thank you, Ken.
Any other questions of Ken? Anybody? I don't see any, so we'll entertain a motion on motions in order.
Yeah, I got it. I move to approve and conditionally accept the grants as presented and authorize the execution of such documents as may be necessary to receive the funds on behalf of the Carson City Airport Authority.
Second. There's a motion and a second on the motion. Discussion. Hearing and seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Carried. Okay. Let's take up item.
Thank you very much. Have a happy 4th of July, everybody.
All right. Let's take up item 22. This is finance. I'll introduce it here. Discussion and possible action regarding a consent to assignment, giving our consent to an assignment of a contract for external audit from Piercy Bowler Taylor and Kern to BDO USA LLP. Okay. Sherry.
Good morning. This is Sherry, CFO.
You know what? You're walking on water with these finance reports that are coming in, sales tax. How you doing that? You must be spending a lot of money.
Don't know. I'm praying a lot. I don't know.
Okay. Cool.
So with this item, our external auditor, PBTK, they've been our auditor for 2 years. We have a 3-year contract with them. They are merging with BDO. And they needed us to sign a consent to assign the contract to BDO as of 6/30, which was the merger date. So we had Nancy go ahead and sign that. And we're letting you guys know what's going on, and we'd like to ratify that action. We have been assured that we'll have the same audit team, the same great service. BDO does more tax work. They're just expanding their practice to do more audits. So PBTK is really still the expert in the audit field, especially with governments.
So now that I've been staying home more often, I get to see these ads from BDO. Is that the same BDO?
Yes.
Okay. I don't need to see any more ads. I know who they are.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Anything else?
That's it for this
Simple
item.
assignment, everything stays the same?
Yep.
Okay. Any questions? All right, motion's in order. Oh, question, I'm sorry, didn't see that.
Actually, not a question. I just wanted to thank Sherry for her prayers because somebody up there is listening to her better than they are me. And
me too.
It's good to have the money coming in.
Sorry, Brad, I didn't see the light on there.
It's okay. Sherry, just for the sake of the record, can you walk us through what happens if we don't ratify this decision?
I'm going to let Todd take that one.
Okay.
Thank you, Supervisor Bonkowski. Todd Reese for the record. If you choose not to ratify this agreement, in effect, you would be terminating the contract with PBTK and BDO, and the city would need to find a different auditor.
That's what I suspected. So then, Sherry, it would go back out to, what would it be, an RFO or? I just want to make sure that we all understand what the process would be.
Yeah, we'd have to send out another statement of qualification and then review them and find another auditor, basically.
Okay. And we would have time to do that if we chose to go that course because the audit is not until.
It doesn't usually start until October,
Right.
But we do have to tell taxation who our auditor is going to be before March. I believe that can be adjusted, though, if you guys decide not to ratify this.
Okay, thank you.
So I can't resist. Todd, can we ask for compensation for consenting to an assignment like this? Hey. You don't have to answer. That's okay. You can always ask, but I know what it's going to go. Just don't worry about it.
I suppose that we could ask, but in general, these are, transactions. Transactions done between, the transaction is really between BDO and PBTK.
Sure.
And we're just saying, yes, we agree that the contract could be assigned to BDO.
I got you. We got you. Yep, you got it.
I don't know if this is you or Sherry. I'm curious what the rush was that we couldn't get it to the board before the decision had to be made.
That's a great question, Supervisor Giomi. I don't know the entire story behind that. And Sherry, if Sherry knows, she can
You're gonna
come
put it
up
to
after
Sherry.
me.
Good job.
But we didn't receive the request until after it was too late to put this on for the prior board meeting. And so this workaround was made to make a contingent on ratification so that we could both get them what they needed and have approval by the board.
I can't imagine it's not because PBTK didn't know. I mean, someone had to have known.
No, I don't. I think they knew. I don't think they were aware of the precise timing that we needed. But my understanding is that BDO did want the signed consents to assignment before the merger took place, which was yesterday, as I understand it.
Okay, thanks.
I would say hopefully they're more organized with their audit than they are with the assignment.
Yeah, it wasn't public. That's
I agree with you.
Yeah, so they couldn't announce it because it wasn't public knowledge that they were merging
It doesn't
until
matter. They
about the
could have signed an
27th.
NDA with us. I mean, if
And
they
come
are
to a
going to
closed
sign the
meeting because it's a
contract.
public meeting. So this is a public meeting, so that's why they couldn't bring it to the board before. I think that it was announced on the 26th or 25th that they were going public, or that they were merging.
I'm sorry to beat a dead horse here, but maybe that's something that we need to look at in our contract templates. You know, as far as assignments of contracts and whether or not there's confidentiality involved in that, so that we make sure that we're abiding by the timelines, because in this particular case, it's not a big deal. I'm sure we're all going to approve this. It could be a big deal on other contracts, and I don't want to be I don't want to be putting the city manager in the position of having to make that decision and then have us reverse that decision in public. I mean, that's going to be embarrassing for everybody. So that's maybe something we need to put on our list to look at in the future.
Got it. Anybody else? Stay there. You're up next, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right. All right, we'll entertain a motion to give our consent to the assignment, and with the understanding that we have the comments of Supervisor Bonkowski in here, that we ought to take a look at how we do this in the future.
I move to ratify the consent to assignment.
Is there a second? There's a motion and a second on the motion. Discussion? Anybody? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Carried. Okay, Sherry, let's take up item, here we go. 22 Bravo.
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay.
So this is something we do every single year. We have to bring before the board by NRS the tax rates that the Nevada Tax Commission certifies and that we're going to charge people. So that's what this item is. It's a resolution.
This isn't a change from the budget, though. This is just
No,
a
this is
formality of
exactly what was in the
transmitting
budget. It's a formality.
it. All right. Questions of Sherry on this one? It's an administrative matter, I think, really.
We're going to need a resolution number. Is it going to be?
It's here, I think. Right?
No, it's not.
No, it's not.
No.
So can we use our 19 for this item and then use our 20 for the 25A?
For the next one. This one would be 19 and the next one would be 20.
Go.
I move to adopt resolution number 2020 R19.
Second.
There's a motion and a second on the motion. Discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Carried. Okay.
Thank you.
I think it's coming up here. All right, let's take up item 23. This is discussion and possible action regarding jointer contracts for bulk fuel oil and delivery services. Carol, you want to take us through what's going on? Is this budgeted stuff? We do this?
Good morning, Carol Akers, Purchasing and Contracts Administrator. Yeah, this is the annual request for the bulk fuel purchases and also the card lock program. And the request for this fiscal year is $94,654. And it's funded by various departments, and it is budgeted.
Okay. Is there any change?
And no, there are no changes to the
Changes from
contract?
what we usually do. Is there different providers or things like that?
No, it's the same state contracts that are used every year.
All right. Who do you got with you? Rich?
We got Rich Hardcastle.
Good morning.
Yeah. Anything you want to add? If we don't do this,
Then we have no vehicles running.
Well, everything ran out of gas?
Yeah, pretty much.
I'm sure there may be somebody out there who says run out of gas.
Yeah.
We'll be passing out bicycles.
Bicycles. Okay.
Then our tow bill goes up.
How are we doing on these jointer contracts? Okay on this?
Yeah.
All right.
Nothing crazy.
All right. Questions of either of the presenters here? Stacy, I'm sorry.
I just, what would your definition of that word? I used to talk for a living.
Substantive.
Yeah, substantively. What, I mean, what?
Changes in the vendors would be one, if they're brought off something new.
Yeah.
But, so any big changes to the contract, other than just extending the contract date.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
Lawyers love those words. We like gray. All right. Anybody else, any questions? I don't see any. Let's take a motion then.
I can make it.
Motion, Supervisor Pankowski.
I move to adopt the contracts as presented and to authorize the purchasing and contracts administrator to extend the joinder contract, provided that the terms do not substantively change when the state renews contract number 3125.
Good motion. All right, on the motion, discussion. Hearing and seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Carried. Yeah, thank you very much. Okay, let's see where we're going next. Going on to Public Works, item 24 alpha. This is a diesel fuel matter. This implements it's amendment of 01 to include diesel fuel in the fuel tax collection interlocal agreement between the state of Nevada and DMV in Carson City. Deputies, are you Deputy Public Works now? Are you acting city engineer? What are you?
I'm all of the above, Mayor.
I thought so.
Yeah. And real property manager. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah, no, Deputy Public Works Director Dan Stuckey for the record. Good morning, Mayor and Board. So this is just a step in the process. Obviously, you guys enacted the ordinance to collect the 5 cent per gallon tax on diesel fuel sold in Carson City. So the city currently has an existing interlocal agreement. We're required to have the DMV, Department of Motor Vehicles, collect and distribute those taxes for fuel taxes. So we currently have it on for motor vehicle tax. So this will just amend that to be able to collect the diesel tax as well. So just a step in the process.
Okay. Questions of Mr. Stuckey? Dan? Anybody? I don't see any. We ready for a motion?
Yeah, I move to authorize the mayor to sign the amended agreement.
There's a motion and a second on the motion. Discussion. Hearing and seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Or punch okay when it says yes when it comes up. There we are. All right. Hey, Dan, why don't you come on up here real quick? I know it's probably not all the time in your bailiwick, but tell us what's going on South Carson Street. Just kind of an update here while you're here.
Yes.
This is not for formal action. This is public comment. I just want to know where we are.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're actually wrapping up, getting close to wrapping up probably in the next 3 weeks, maybe a month, to wrapping up the underground utilities, which was a big milestone because, as you know, I think there's about $6 million worth of underground utilities with the project. So that's a big accomplishment. So after that, you'll really start to see the surface improvements start to happen. The big next step will be the roundabout construction. That's looking to start in late July, maybe early August. So they're going to get in there and they're going to do it pretty quick. They're estimating about 6 weeks to construct that roundabout. There will be some detours associated with that. And so we're going to try to really bolster our public outreach and really getting the message out as far as traffic control. So that's something that we're going to do on our side. They're on schedule for Nevada Day. I don't know if that's what you were hinting at, but they're definitely on schedule. They know and they're aware, and they're, if you drive down there, Sierra Nevada Construction probably has, I think, 100 to 125 workers on site. So they're really getting it done and trying to move fast. And they're doing a good job. So it's coming along nicely. Nevada Day opening, the landscaping may come, after the calendar year, but we'll see and kind of play that as we go. So that's the update.
Okay, thank you. That's all we need. Thank you very much. All right. Let's see. Community Development, 25 Alpha. This is discussion and possible action regarding a proposed resolution amending the maximum number of residential permits under Carson City Growth Management Ordinance for the years 2021 and 2022. We do this every year. Talk to us about what we've done, what the Planning Commission's recommending. Lee, and just tell us what's going on here.
Good morning. For the record, Lee Plemmel, Community Development Director. Mayor, this is our annual growth management, so you're familiar with it. If you as you go through it. If you've been here every year, we go through this. This is pretty routine in establishing the number of residential permits for the following year and estimating future years, and also for industrial and commercial projects, the threshold for growth management review of water usage. I am going to go through a brief presentation, and I do have some new information that I haven't had in the past regarding our capacity analysis and how we're doing this. So I wanted to show you a little bit about that through this, but just kind of go through the background. The actions you're taking are to establish the maximum number of residential permits for next year, which is recommended by the Planning Commission to be 672. That's a number of residential units that roughly represents a 3% growth for the city, which has kind of historically been the cap each year for growth management for the city, for the number of allocations. Also, just a little bit, this is a snapshot of from the code of the different essential resources that you should consider in establishing this number. It started off with just water and sewer. It's been expanded over the years to include other things such as sheriff protection services, fire protection services, and other things, and as well as the school enrollment and capacity. And you have comments, you have written comments attached to the staff report from various city departments and the school district on that. And I assume their departments are available if you have any specific questions on that. This is just kind of the history. This is a chart showing going all the way back to 1978 when growth management started, with the top line, the black line there being the maximum permitted number of residential units per year, and the white line being those actual permits that were pulled for residential units. We're back on track this year. I think this chart is as of the Planning Commission meeting of May, so it's a month or a month and a half behind, but we're kind of back on track for kind of an average year. Again, this year, they're still going steady with residential building permits. There's still subdivisions out there. As you've seen in the last few months, you've had some subdivisions come through here. So there is some kind of still steady residential permitting. But in any given year, in any given year, we're not actually growing at 3%, it's less, but with the limit at that higher level, you can see, for example, in 2018, when a large apartment complex comes in, that's a lot of units, they take up a lot of permits, so having the capacity there allows them in any given year to pull their permits that they need, while kind of in the long run, we're not really experiencing that high level 3% of growth. So this is kind of the new thing that you haven't seen in the past, that we talked about in the past, that we're working with Public Works and the GAS department. And you heard a little bit about this when they gave their last water capacity report within the last year. This is kind of the tool that was used, and it's a parcel by parcel reckoning of an estimate of future units, both residential and commercial. This snapshot here is just residential units. It's sort of a heat map. As you can see, the green would be estimating no future units, and then you have kind of the lighter colors going to the dark red based on the number of units that are going on a property. So you can kind of see where the areas are where we might see a future residential growth. Kind of zooming in on that a little bit here, the way we went through this is, if there's a project, let's say such as the Anderson Ranch, where there's an approval, we know the exact number of units that are proposed, so those number of units are actually put onto each of those parcels there. But then you have other areas that are vacant, like, for example, this right next to that area, where we just have to kind of, based on the zoning and master plan designation, we estimate the number of residential units. And in estimating the residential units, we actually are very conservative in that we're estimating a high number, the maximum number. Kind of zooming in again, as you zoom in on the map in in the application, then you start to see the actual number of residential units that we're assigning to these parcels. And again, we have some projects where there's actual proposals like this here, and then there's other ones that are vacant in future, and we just make estimates based on land, on zoning and master plan. In addition, kind of on the estimating on the high end, if there's a 1 acre parcel, if there's a parcel zoned 1 acre, but it's actually 2 acres, we're assuming, you can see some of that over here, we're assuming at some time in the future there'll be another unit. So there may never be another unit there in those types of cases, but we're kind of assuming the worst case, quote unquote, worst case scenario of having the most residential units. And that's what the water capacity analysis that you've seen and their monitoring is based on. Any questions on this before I kind of finish?
So the water capacity is based upon the estimated building.
Yeah, I think that, yeah. And I have Dan Stuckey here.
Brad, Supervisor Witkowski, got a question. Come on up.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment that, this is years' worth of work, or the result of years' worth of work, and it's a really valuable tool in looking at long-term planning. I'm really happy to see this, but this ties into the part that you haven't mentioned yet, is that Carson City has enough water capacity to cover full build-out, even based on these very aggressive numbers. So as far as long-term planning, we're sitting in a very good position as far as water capacity, and I assume that you're going to get the sewer capacity too, where we have a good plan for the future, but it's going to take some expansion.
Yes, Dan Stuckey, Deputy Public Works Director. So Mayor, to kind of go back to your question, typically how it's been done in the past, and we gave an update to the board probably, I don't know, it's been probably a year now, with water projections. There's a bunch of different ways you can do it, but this is probably the most detailed way, as you get down to the parcel scale and you project, like Lee mentioned, project based off of, master plan zoning on what could develop there. And of course, we try to be on the water side, try to be conservative because we want to project the most usage. The other part of that we went along with that is we analyzed, so, we have like 19,000 water meters across the city. So we broke that down by land use and analyzed average usage per land use to get a very accurate of what people are actually using on the water side, and then use that into our model to get, those future water projections, which Supervisor Bonkowski kind of hit at. So yes, from a water rights standpoint, we mentioned, I think we have 18,000 some water rights, under our control for the city. I think we're using about 10,000 of those today. So we have, and we're projected, I think the study that we did was 16,000 or somewhere between 16 and 17,000 in the future. So we have the capacity there on the water rights side. On the, production side, we also, we have a number, and I know these projects have come to the board, kind of the plan of what we want to do on the water side, but it's important. We need to, rehabilitate wells that are not as productive as they were before. The Quill treatment plant upgrades, that's a huge project. So with all these projects that we have planned to do over the next 20 to 30 years, on the production side, those will be a big deal for the city to be able to use the water that we have and use it in the most efficient way.
Right, real good.
Part of the reason this is valuable is when projects come in front of this body and a developer is asking for increased density, that it allows us to look at our resources and determine whether or not we have the capacity to approve that project based on the increased density, assuming that everything else falls into place and meets all the parameters and conditions that we put on that project. To take that a step further, not only does it give us the ability to look at potential increased density or not, denying projects that are asking for increased density because we may have issues or perceived issues with capacity. It also allows us to, really look at whether or not we need to go out and get additional resources and who pays for that. Because in the past, when we needed to go out and get additional resources, we, the city, have borne the burden of paying for that. And so now this gives us the ability to look at future developers and trying to recoup some of the cost of that increased capacity by putting the burden on them if they want to get their projects approved, especially if it's an increased density. So to me, this kind of information is just invaluable looking at 20, 30, 40, 50 years down the road. I put this information right up there with what the city did back in the early 80s with acquiring water rights that we would own so that, that we could control our own water future.
I would just want to add, because Supervisor Bonkowski, you asked about the wastewater side, and I don't know if Lee probably won't go into this level of detail on the wastewater side, but I did want to provide kind of the board an update of what we use on the wastewater side that's similar to this. In 2018 or 2017, we conducted a very comprehensive sewer master plan that essentially was very similar analysis to what you see here today, except instead of water usage, it looks at sewer usage, but we did it at a parcel scale. And we wanted, when we did that, we wanted something that we called like a living document or living hydraulic computer model that we could use that wouldn't just be static and we'd have to, totally be out of date 10 years from now. And so we have a model. One of our main sewer engineer keeps this model as developments come in. We plug stuff into the computer model, rerun it, and we're looking at this, live model on how future development impacts our sewer system as well as our plant. And so we have a number of CIPs that can be triggered different off of what's coming in the future. And it does give us a tool for possible pro rata shares with development and those types of things that we never had 5 years ago. So I did want to give you an update. It's very similar to this on the sewer side.
Very good. Other questions of either of these presenters? Anybody?
I'll also note, Mayor, so in the past with the master plan, we were kind of just before doing this individual parcel basis, we were kind of made more rough estimates on the number of residential units based on the total areas. But going in and parcel and that's how we came to, well, there's going to be about 75,000 to 80,000 is how many residential units we'll have. But now that we've gone into the detail parcel by parcel and actually assigning some, and I think that's still valid and probably a likely scenario. But if if people tear down their house and put the maximum density on those properties, it could be a little bit more than that. I don't calculate the number here, but this is a graph of the existing units and potential number of units. And I think if you had that many units, you get a little bit over 80,000, but we're still kind of in that range. But what this shows is, again, with that water capacity analysis, doing that, and they're updating it based on, that capacity analysis is based on actual average usage of a single-family residence, actual average uses of apartments, and applying that to those future units, and that can, and we still end up at that build out below the capacity of the rights that we have in the bank right now. And that changes, and that number, that as the usage maybe changes over time, the average uses, they still plug that into, and so it's kind of dynamic going forward as well. But so and again, this shows kind of the existing units by unit type. That yellow is oh no, this is by land use, not by unit type. This one's by land use designation. So we have the various low density residentials, the yellow, the medium density makes up the kind of the bulk of the residential in the unit in the city now, that's striped one, and then you have multifamily and other types of units, so other types of master plan land use designation. And then if all of our lands were built out, then that top bar is how many units we've had. So we're still a good ways towards the end, but still a ways out from, at kind of our current growth rates, we're still a ways out from reaching that build out. I mean, kind of showing this is the graph we use and send out every time the demographer updates his projections, which the demographer's projections for the city are the dark line there. Those projections are getting close to a couple years old now, more than a year old, don't know what that'll be. There was, that was actually within the last year. I talked to the demographer about that. it's largely based on economic state projections, which for some reason flattens us out over the next 15 years. But as you know, in planning, we've stayed pretty consistent. The demographers, he's got a very tough job, not being critical of him, but the estimates, the projections from the demographer have varied widely over the past. At times, when Tesla was coming in, his projections were up above our lines there. So we just estimate that our growth will continue somewhere in that upper range there, between there, as it has in the past for the purposes of long-range planning for transportation, water, and sewer. And we'll probably reach build-out somewhere out in 2050 or later at that rate. I throw in some housing statistics in here. It's not necessarily directly related to growth management, but I don't know any other time, any other process we do that brings up this information, so I just think it's kind of interesting. But this is from assessors data, with the top graph being the median sales price of houses going back. This chart goes back to 2004, which was right before the recession. You know, shows it leading up to that, and then the dip, and we're back kind of up. We've been going up for quite a while, and again, this is probably a month or two behind, but the median sales price of a single-family home so far in 2020 was $360,000. And there's a little bit more information in there. I go into a little bit more detail. You know, an affordable house for a household in Carson City that's at the median income is about $250,000, give or take. And you know, there's like, I think in there is about 20% of houses are for sale or were sold for that, or some lower amount. And then so just to wrap up, the recommendations, as I noted, is pretty much status quo in the number of allocations that are made available, just based on the calculation that we do. 672 residential units for 2021. That's divided between general and developer categories as usual, and to maintain the average daily water usage threshold for commercial and industrial usage at 15,000 gallons a day. So that concludes my presentation. If you have any other questions.
Questions of Mr. Plemmel? Some interesting information, Lee, and I agree with Supervisor Bonkowski. The granular detail of this is amazing. It's good. John, Supervisor Barrett.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Lee, do you have a percentage of what we actually have grown? I know it's a 3%, but I imagine it's down around 2 or a little less, isn't it, over the last 15 years?
Right. So going back to everything to the left of that 2020, the left vertical line is, or kind of in the middle there, the vertical line is 2020. So everything to the left of that has been the demographer's estimates. So as you can see, during the recession, based on jobs in the city, the demographer estimated that our population was going down. Of course, we still had the same number of residential units, but I think because people were migrating out because of jobs, it was going down. But if you look at when it's gone up, it's gone at about around 1%. To get right to your question, it's been right around 1% is a pretty typical annual growth rate in the demographer's estimates.
Thank you.
And I also wanted to mention, what I didn't mention on this agenda item, this is also going to be our growth management report to the legislators per AB 240 that requires the annual report. So we'll forward this report to them.
Do we get those reports from other counties? Or are they just blowing it off?
I believe we were probably one of the first to give ours to the state within the time frame, and then the others followed after that. So,
and kind of a stupid question: what do they do with the information when they get it?
We're not sure about that part.
All right, I won't go any further down that. Good questions in order.
So part of that legislative bill was that I believe we're supposed to meet with Washoe, Lyon, Douglas, and Story. Are those meetings happening or scheduled?
I haven't seen anything so far, and
Right.
I think,
That's my point.
I'll try to reach out to the other,
I mean, I know that the quad counties meet regularly. Washoe County is the one that was added to this, so that we can talk about regional growth. And at that time, I made the point that what happens in Washoe County and what happens in the quad counties are worlds apart, and I don't see the connection. Be happy to sit at the table with them, but we're going to be discussing very different items. So I don't know what the benefit is to the meeting other than general knowledge. But, this is required legislative mandate. And what happens if nobody complies? What happens if the meetings just don't take place? Probably goes in the round file with all the reports that we're getting.
That round file gets pretty full.
and I think part of the problem is that no one was put in charge as far as coordinating this. So I'll reach out to the other local governments and see,
It seems like
what we
this
need
is
to do to
kind of
set up some
the
meetings.
epitome of the public perception of excessive bureaucracy.
Well, we could always send a little note to Assemblyman Daley in Reno and ask who's supposed to make the first step in doing these conferences.
Can I deliver that?
Yeah, I'll stay away.
Probably shouldn't ask the question because we may not like his answer.
All right. Other questions? Okay, are we ready? Motion's in order on the growth management ordinance. Go, Supervisor. Mayor-elect, get it on.
I move to adopt resolution number 2020-R20.
There's a motion and a second on the motion. Discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Carried. All right, folks, why don't we take a 10-minute break while we get the health folks in here? Go out and we'll just be in recess until sometime, 10:10, something like that, okay? We're in recess. Going to bring the meeting of the Board of Supervisors back to order. We're now at item number 26. This is for possible action and discussion regarding directives and recommendations concerning Carson City departmental and staff functions in Carson City as consolidated municipality in relation to the exercise of emergency powers. This relates to COVID. Who's going to start?
I just have a couple of quick
Okay.
things before we start.
Oh.
So pursuant to the governor's directive, number 24, that was effective June 26, individuals are now required to wear a mask or face covering when in public spaces, hence the reason why we're all wearing face masks today. So just a reminder to the public that the city is now requiring any members of the public to wear a face covering when entering city buildings. So that's a change. And then, unless you have an exemption as outlined in that directive. And then also with that, the latest directive that came out on Monday, that's number 26, that extended phase 2 until July 31st. And it also extended the open meeting law provisions so that we don't have to have a public meeting. That's extended until July 31st also. I know you guys have talked about before the senior center and kind of wanting an update from them. Courtney wasn't able to make it because she's busy doing, preparing for the drive-through meals at this time. So the Carson City Senior Center facility remains closed in phase 2. Meals on Wheels continues to deliver with contactless deliveries with 11,579 meals delivered during the month of May, which is a 25% increase. All clients receive 14 days of shelf-stable food as a precaution in case the kitchen needs to close for an unplanned event. And for example, if there's a quarantine of the employees. And Meals on Wheels appears to be leveling off after the big spike in demand, and all clients are being served and there's no wait list for that. The congregate on-site dining is fully operational as a drive-through service with curbside pickups available for seniors on foot. Congregate has also expanded to include weekend meals and peanut butter and jelly packs to those who do not have refrigeration or reheating over the weekend. The drive-through also gives out books courtesy of the Carson City Library, extra pantry food, toilet paper, and other hygiene products, and those are all free. Congregate averages 125 meals per day, only 50 less than our average when they were fully open. We still celebrate birthdays on the first Friday of the month and have a 95th birthday to celebrate next Friday. The last thing is all COVID services have been fully funded through a combination of Older American CARES Act funding and private grants. While the facility remains physically closed, staff are available by phone for case management services for any seniors or individual with a disability in need. Summer is here and our fan drive is in full effect. We have a long wait list of seniors needing fans, and we ask the community to send us new box fans. You can ship them directly from Walmart or Amazon to keep you out of the store. And I ask the public to please wear a face covering and social distance. Our Carson City seniors are terribly isolated during this pandemic and needs the community to step up and do their part so that we can safely reopen when the governor says that we can. It's a small inconvenience for a big impact. That was from Courtney Warner at the Senior Center.
Okay. Nikki.
So, good morning. For the record, Nikki Aker, Director of Carson City Health and Human Services. And I'm just going to give you an update, kind of what's been overall happening at the health department. We're trying to get some of the health department employees back to doing their regular jobs. They were very instrumental in helping us in the initial phase of this pandemic. But as you know, a lot of our employees are grant funded. So, and some of those grants have allowed employees to work on COVID activities. Some have not. So we're getting those employees back to their regular jobs. We are hiring individuals to assist us through this. One thing that we're doing is partnering with the State of Nevada Department of Public and Behavioral Health and the Nevada System of Higher Education, also known as NSHE, to hire some staff that they will pay for through December, and then our grants will start paying for these individuals. And this is going to help build our team to investigate the cases, collect and analyze the data so that we'll have more information to inform all of you and to inform our public. As you know, we've been struggling with some of that as we're just trying to keep our head above water, and that always hasn't been easy right now. Some of the positions that we're going to be hiring are a statistician. We brought on an epidemiologist yesterday that's going to help just with the COVID activities, 2 case investigators, and a testing coordinator. So we're really excited about that. We're working to lease more space because we are out of space, and we are doubling up every office that we can. I met with some individuals from Public Works last week as we were looking at some changes need to make, and they were commenting how we always seem to put more people in wherever we can, and yes, we do. We utilize as much space as we can inside and outside of our building. I want to remind you the Board of Health is going to be at the next meeting, so I'll give you more update of what's happening at the Health Department and what our plans for the future are. And then I ask you to continue educating your constituents. We are seeing an increase of cases, as you're going to hear. We need people to wear those face masks when in public, stay home when you're sick, especially don't go to work when you're sick. And I know it's hard to differentiate, am I sick from allergies? What really am I feeling? But let's err on the side of caution here. We are in a pandemic. Social distance, wash your hands, keep your hands away from your face, especially when you don't have freshly washed hands. So with that, I'll take any questions generally about the Health Department, and then I'm going to let Jeannie speak and then Dustin speak.
Okay, any questions of Nikki? Don't leave, we may have.
I'm not leaving.
Okay, don't leave.
I'm not leaving.
All right, Jeannie, how you doing?
I'm good, how are you?
I see a smile on your face, that's good.
Good.
Right.
That's in light because I'm going on vacation here in the next couple of days. So
very good.
I will be disappearing and going off the grid for 2 weeks. So I'm elated.
You get Dustin
what's
up here
happening.
too.
So yes, we did bring Dustin in today. I wanted to share with you that we're continuing to do our community-based testing events. We had one of our largest events earlier this week at Carson High School where we tested over 430 people that came through the drive-through. And we continue to do those. The public continues to express their interest. Our call center has been extremely busy the last few weeks. In fact, on Monday this week, we had 178 calls that we fielded in one day, which is the highest number that we've ever had compared to even when we started having the call center and the numbers coming in. So we continue to see those. We anticipate that next Monday will be busy after a long holiday weekend, that there will be more people who are calling. We are collaborating with the legislators and making sure that they're getting tested in their jurisdictions before they show up into Carson City next week for the special session to start on Wednesday, July 8th.
Are they doing that?
Well, we are testing those who are in the Quad County jurisdiction, but each legislator is supposed to be tested in their own jurisdiction before they arrive in Carson.
Is that just voluntary, or who is somebody really heading that up so those legislators know that they have to get tested?
Oh, it's being headed up, yes. The
right.
Division of Public and Behavioral Health with the state and LCB have been having communications, and that coordination has been occurring over the last few days. So each jurisdiction knows that they need to have their legislators tested and then their staffers tested as well before they're arriving in Carson.
Well, that's good to know. I'm getting questions from news media about wanting to sit down and find out how we're doing on the, on COVID stuff. And one is, are you testing enough? What are you doing?
Sure.
And how are you going to deal with the legislators who come into town?
Well, they're being tested ahead of time, and then Nevada Division of Public and Behavioral Health is working with LCB and the legislators to educate them about what it means if somebody was to show up positive and test positive while they're here, and how we will handle that. We're geared up as an agency as to how we can provide that support. I was on a call earlier this week with Division of Emergency Management and the current incident commander, Brett Compston, as well, and Caleb Cage was briefed on what it is that we're looking at doing as an agency and how we can support if somebody is to come up positive and how we can educate them, but then also make sure that we're available to test if need be.
Good move.
So to give you some of the ideas about where we've been doing, in the Quad Counties, so far 13,585 people have been tested for COVID. Some of those are going to be repeat individuals who may have needed to be tested 2 or 3 times if they were healthcare workers that needed to be tested and have 2 negatives before they went in. But when we look at the overall individual tests, we've tested about 7.5% of our population without duplication at this point. So we continue to do those testing efforts. The number of tests that Carson City Health and Human Services has done is a little over 6,200 as an agency. So we've tested through the community-based testing events, our long-term care facilities in the Quad County region, as well as asymptomatic and symptomatic. We've also used our rapid testing machine, the Abbott ID Now machine that we acquired, was given to us through the National Guard, and we have taken that out into the Quad Counties and gone to our food service locations and done some testing of our homeless population and been able to provide that service.
Jeannie, if I could interrupt you.
Yes, sir.
Do you know what the current positivity rate is for testing in the Quad County region? Because I saw this morning that Nevada overall, the state positivity rate hit 15%, I think, on Monday.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So do you know what it is here in the Quad
I don't
County?
have that number. Dustin, do you happen to know that offhand?
Okay.
So I know we have the state. The state continues to increase, and we're seeing a large increase in the number and that positivity rate being impacted by what's happening in southern Nevada.
Right.
And the sheer number of positives that they're getting they're doubling their numbers about every 2.5 days. So as far as what we're seeing, our 7-day moving average, Dustin has, sorry, I dropped my mask. Dustin has some of those stats for you. But we continue to do that testing. We're prepared. We're working on a longer-term plan of what's going to happen when the legislature is in session next year in 2021, because what does that also look like in relationship to the lobbyists and others who will be coming into the community, and how will we be doing that? So we're continuing to work with the National Guard and DEM on that.
So this may be a question for Nikki as well. So if Nikki if your employees, some of your employees are going to be going back to their regular duties at the same time that we have increased positivity testing going on in this area as well as throughout the state, how are you monitoring this to ensure that we have adequate staff as caseloads potentially increase, testing increases, which means that contact tracing increases? I know that we have additional staff coming on, being paid for by grants, but how are you monitoring all these balls that you have in the air to make sure that you can afford to send your employees back to their regular duties and not have a negative consequence on the testing side?
Sure. So we've actually had quite a few discussions inside the health department, and we've talked about a variety of what we call cut scores or different threshold points. We aren't going to be putting any staff back into other duties until we are sure that we have not just other staff hired and trained, but that we're actually able to go back to those other services that would be in place. We know how many cases, how many positives we have, and we know that for every certain number of positives, we need to have an additional person in place to be doing those investigations or that monitoring piece. So we amp up and then we step back as need be with the number of cases that we have. We're currently doing well. We continue to evaluate that. We have regular meetings where we have those discussions if we need to have additional staff that we're bringing in or if we need to look at what is there. This is actually part of our continuity of operations plan or our COOP planning. And this is one of the things that, interestingly enough, this year we did our business impact analysis, and every division within the health department participated with a contractor to establish and determine what are those essential and required functions that we need to have, and what are those that we can defer based upon when an emergency is in place. And so we did that this year well before COVID was coming into place. And so we actually have these reports that we're able to look at, and we've had those discussions about what's still deferrable. But we are continuing to look forward and see that as we see these eviction capabilities ease up, what is that going to mean for human services and the support that they're going to be giving? What is it going to be needing as we step into what we anticipate to be, unfortunately, a not so positive flu season? And how can we be doing flu vaccinations to try to be keeping more people out of the hospital when we may be having these high numbers of COVID at the same time, because they utilize the same resources. So how can we be making sure that we are geared up for that and we have the staffing and the movement and the flexibility with that?
Because just to give the public an idea, I believe, Dustin, you had said at one of our last meetings that on average there's about 7 people that you have to contact trace for every positive case. If that's the case, and we have 92, I think, at last time, current positive cases, that's almost 650 people that you're trying to keep track of in addition to the 92 positives.
Correct.
That's a lot of people that you guys are trying to keep track of. So I just want to make sure that you have adequate staff to do that, and that, I mean, I don't know how you handle all this, so it's, you know, it's really helpful to hear it from you guys on how are you doing all this? What are your, you know, processes so that we know that we're giving you the resources and that you have the protocols in place to be able to do your jobs?
Sure. And I believe I was the one who gave that information about the number of people that we track in relationship to each one of the positives. There are certainly days that we feel like our hair is on fire and that there are challenges. And as you've seen the last few weeks, we've seen an increase in numbers, and there certainly are some challenges that are ahead of us. Challenges in something that's new, and I do appreciate what you're leaning into about making sure that we have the support that is there. We currently have 3 National Guard folks that are helping with us, and we have different positions that are in place. We will continue to work. It's kind of its own human resources challenge as we see these moving pieces. And we also have to anticipate if or when somebody in the health department becomes ill with COVID, and what does that look like for our operations as well. So we have those discussions in what we're looking to do. I want to make sure that I give Nikki the chance to kind of give additional feedback on that. We are also, we have the ability, the state has signed on with a large contract that has other possibilities for us to use another resource that can provide additional services and support for us with contact tracing. They signed on with that about 2 weeks ago, and they're in the process of getting the local agencies access to that so that we can use that resource as well. So if we were to find ourselves short on staff, or if we surged more rapidly than we were able to bring staff on, we would be able to utilize that resource as well.
Jeannie just brought up the resource that I was going to tell you all about. So we continue to have conversations with the state about the human resource side of this and trying to keep up. And like Jeannie just told you about, that resource of that additional resource is available to us in the future. Near future, I hope. It already was supposed to be available to us, but that's available that, like she said, if we have a big surge, we can lean into that, because, you know, we'll see these big surges and then it will subside. So it's these big surges and then a subside, and we're working all together as a state.
Because I understand that the numbers are in, you know, Clark and Washoe County, but we still want to take care of our own. So we want to make sure that you guys have the resources that you need.
Go.
That's all I have to report. So I'm going to turn it over to Dustin, but I'll just sit back in the back. So if you have other questions that I can answer, then I'll be here for that.
Mr. Epidemiologist, go.
For the record, Dustin Booth.
You're in short supply these days. I was going to ask you, where'd you
so,
find another one?
So, like Nikki mentioned earlier, through UNR, through the Nevada State Higher Education, we'll be able to hire some staff. And so we had one come on board yesterday, so it was just her first day, but having to get her, trained up and as a lot of our processes are changing with this new state system that's going to come on board. But we'll continue moving, going forward with what we have. So it'll be nice to have some additional support for, data analysis and for case investigation as we move forward. As of 6:30, I just wanted to give you an update. In the Quad County area, we had 345 cases. 50% of those cases, so 174, were contacts to other cases. They may not have necessarily been cases in our jurisdiction. A lot of them were, but they may have been a contact to a case in Washoe or in another county. And then 49.6% were not contacts to other cases. As we go through when they do a case investigation, so we first get a lab that they're positive. Then we gather the information on that patient from the ordering provider of where they live and their phone number, so then we can reach out and contact them. And then we go through a set of questions trying to assess their maybe a risk of where they got it from, and then also who they've been in contact with, and then also, since really the only intervention right now for this is limiting movement, so we put the case into isolation, and then we work on those contacts, getting them into quarantine. And so with the case, we assess their needs, because now we're limiting their movement. Well, how are you going to get groceries? How are you going to get your medication? What other resources do you need while your movement is being limited? So we go through all that, and during that we try to assess maybe where did you get this from. So a lot of times individuals, they can't remember every place that they've been or who they've been in contact with in the last 14 days. So I guess the largest thing we looked at of all of our cases since through June 30th is that about 38% of the cases, 131, were what we categorize community-based. We didn't really have a pinpoint of where they got that from. Our next one is 109 cases were household. That we see a lot of times a case, and then depending on their household situation, one or two can get it, or 100% of their household gets it. And then we've had a few that are healthcare related, that a healthcare provider was ill and made some patients sick. And then a few travel related, about 7% are travel related. And then work site, where we've seen a lot in work sites that have stayed open through this whole time. And then as new work sites have opened up, we've seen office environments, food establishments, construction sites, manufacturing facilities, those types of, that's where your contact has been. And obviously a lot of our businesses have people that live in other counties. So the initial case could have been from, a Washoe County resident that came to work and made other people ill, or even some of our own residents that seem to continue to go to work while they're being ill and spreading it amongst their coworkers. So that's sort of a breakdown of all of our cases, the 345 cases that we've had. Based on our current 7-day moving average is 7 cases a day is where we're at. So I think through our efforts of doing our best of ability of getting those cases locked down as soon as possible, getting hold of them and getting them to verbally agree to voluntary quarantine, and then getting hold of those contacts. I think those efforts, as hard as they are and as upsetting as they may be to some of the contacts, because we don't divulge who your contact is, I think that really helps limit the spread, and keeping, even though 7 a day is it's not as much as our other jurisdictions, but it's a lot for our small little workforce. But I think it really has helped keep that to the best, to try to slow that spread, or to keep the spread from being more widespread in our community.
So let me ask a few questions. Maybe, is there community spread occurring in Carson City?
So yeah, some of our cases, they don't, there's nothing, they say that, when in the last 14 days, where you been? So, it was early on, it was easier, there wasn't very many places open. But, they talk about, I go out, I'm out at the grocery store, they have no known contact of any other known case. It's not necessarily, I guess we have had a few that are social events, like they had a birthday party or a barbecue where they got it from, but people, either it's very recall bias or they're embarrassed to tell us where they are, where they've been in the last 14 days, that they just seem to be out and about in the community and they get it.
Do we have any coming out of restaurants that we know of?
So as patrons of restaurants, yes. No. Workers of restaurants, yes.
Is it safe to go to a restaurant as a patron?
So, safe to go to a restaurant as a patron, I mean, yes. But I would highly encourage that when you go out, because obviously when you're eating, you can't wear a mask, but you should be protecting yourself as you go out to eat. Protect yourself before you're eating or drinking. So just because you're going to a restaurant doesn't mean you're mask free. I've seen observation of that around town that people go, oh, I'm going to a restaurant, so I don't need to wear a mask. So, our intervention right now to try to stop this is, wearing, masks. So you should be protecting those restaurant workers just like they're wearing a mask, protecting you. And so that's just something to do that. And then, with the restaurants, they have their lower occupancy, so that should be helping in regards to that. Outdoor dining, if it's available, I think is obviously a better choice than indoor dining. But just trying to, protect yourself. And then if you're not feeling good, don't go out. We've seen that with some of the cases that they continue, they don't have their diagnosis yet, but they were tested, but they still continue to go out in the community because they need groceries, because they need this, or they don't feel that sick even though they got tested, they still continue to go out. So hopefully with the new governor's mandate of everybody in public wearing masks, we hope that will help decrease some of those occurrences that are happening in our community.
Okay. On the hires, the temporary hires we're hiring?
Yes.
Those can get picked up and paid for by the CARES Act, can't they?
Yeah, so one of the things, that's how ultimately we're gonna pay for them is through we received 2 grants through the epidemiology part of the health department, through what's called the Epidemiology Laboratory Capacity Grant, or what we call the ELC grant. We've received two grants for that. Or I've applied for 2 grants, we've received 1, now it's going around for signatures. So the first one is the CARES Act, and the other one is under the Payroll Protection Act, and it's called Enhanced Detection. And so we'll be hiring individuals through that, but right now, we're gonna initially hire them through UNR, through that, and they're actually gonna pay for them initially, so that'll actually allow us to extend that money, because we have 30 months to spend it, so that'll allow us to extend that.
We have 30 months on those grants?
Yes.
And CARES Act is through the end of the year.
So through the ELC CARES grant, it's actually through 2021.
Oh, good.
So the different CARES dollars,
okay.
A lot of CARES dollars out there.
Yeah, Nikki?
So Mayor, we've been getting different CARES dollars coming to the health department. It's different than the city CARES dollars.
So, where are we on heading up, how much of the 10 million we can spend on helping people get through COVID expenses? Is anybody heading that up?
I believe Sherry's going to report on that.
Oh, Sherry's going to do it. Okay.
We have a tag team going here.
That's good. That's good. Is it possible, you send out that daily, at 6 o'clock, you send out a notice about who was picked up. I don't mean to put more work on you folks, but is it possible to graph that stuff? Put the numbers there and also graph a 7-day moving average so that people can actually see what's happening in the quad counties here?
So,
or is that not possible?
I don't think we have the 7-day moving average on our website, but on our website, we do have graphs in regards to that. So those are some of the, with some additional resources that we'll be, enhancing.
Are those graphs for just the Quad County or Carson City or statewide?
So on our website at gethealthycarsoncity.org, we have it for the Quad County, and then we break it down for each county.
Okay, all right.
But I don't think we have the 7-day moving average. We'll have to figure out how to put that up there.
Well, that's what I think, anyway, it's not that everybody has to see a graph, but it sometimes helps make some sense out of the numbers you're seeing.
Understand.
Okay. How's the hospital doing?
So we have two major hospitals in the area that we work with, Carson Tahoe, Carson Valley Medical Center, and then for a smaller part, South Lyon Medical Center. So Carson Tahoe is seeming to be okay. It ebbs and flows in regards to how many they have hospitalized. I think Carson Valley Medical Center right now is experiencing a surge in regards to the people that they have hospitalized for COVID. This virus is very interesting. We're still learning about this virus. A lot of times, facilities want people to be tested negative before they can be transferred out of the hospital. So in order for the hospital to do that, so they test the individuals, and we've seen people that will test negative on the first day, and then 24 hours later they get another test, or 48 hours, whatever and then they're positive. So then they have to wait again and test them. They may not necessarily need to be in the hospital, but they have no other place to go, so they stay there until they can be accepted at that facility because of those facility requirements.
Vicki?
So Dustin's given you the information about all of our cases that are hospitalized, at different hospitals, but information about just Carson Tahoe at this point. So 71% of the ICU beds are occupied. Now keep in mind, this can be other illnesses or injuries. 67% of their beds are occupied, and 13% of the ventilators are in use. So that is the current status as of today. And then you asked earlier about our current positivity rate, and it's approximately 2.6%. Thank goodness for cell phones and.
It'd be nice to have that graphed as well, so we see what the movement is in the positivity rate. If we could do that, I don't think any of us want to put additional workload on you, but it's interesting information, and it's important information for people to see. I mean, because if you're watching the national news, that's what you're seeing. Give them something comparable to look at here, maybe give them a little bit better news than what's going on nationally.
And that's what we're hoping to do with the addition of some of these other people. So we're really excited to have some more people on board. It'll be a couple weeks yet, but.
Are the tests to tell whether you've had coronavirus, are they out now, the antibody tests?
So they are out, but some of them are better than others. And again, I encourage people to do their homework on them. They are available at the labs. You do need a doctor's order to get them done. There is a cost for them. We currently are not providing them.
Okay, all right. That's me. Thanks. Sorry for taking so much time. Stacy, jump in.
I just have one quick question. You talked about the hospitals and their capacity, and are you working something into your plan so that, and I know some communities are doing this, so that if the hospital has patients who are symptomatic but not in need of a hospital bed, but have no place to go, a place to go, so that we can put sick people in the hospital, put sick people who need to be in the hospital, and people who don't need to be in the hospital someplace where they can quarantine. Are we working on any kind of plan for that in the Quad County region? And I know larger communities are doing that. We may not have the capacity to do that.
I'll let Jeannie speak to that because they have their plans that would address stuff like that.
Jeannie Freeman for the record. So we continue to work with Washoe County, and Renown is going to keep their alternate care site up, and that's going to be where some of that surge has that capability, because they don't utilize all of the same equipment in their alternate care site that they would inside the hospital facility. So we do have that partnership in Washoe County and that collaboration for that to be serving the entire region. We were assessed earlier this year when the Army Corps of Engineers came out as to whether or not we would have the capacity anywhere to do an alternate care site. And the locations that we had identified and looked at were deemed incapable or too costly to actually do the conversion to an alternate care site, because it is basically down to the studs and rebuild for that. So we don't have that. We would be utilizing Renown's capacity. We do have the mobile medical facility, which is that inflatable tent that we've set up multiple times. And we do have that ready to go and to be able to be deployed if need be to support that. Our Human Services Department has been working with Washoe County and the FEMA trailers that they have up there that were identified for those who are homeless, who may need a place to be if they were to test positive and not have a place to go. But those, from what I understand, those trailers are supposed to stay in place for quite a while so that we can utilize them throughout the winter for a variety of different reasons, such as that kind of situation. That is one of the challenges that we do see too with first responders, and we've had communications with our first responder agencies that if they do have somebody who shows up positive, we don't want them going home to their family, but how can we isolate them? And so I do know that some of our jurisdictions have looked at how they can use some of their volunteer agency buildings to be a place for housing of those service providers and while they're in that quarantine period. So we've worked on it. We do have quite a few limitations based on the lack of facilities within the Quad County area, but we do have that partnership with Washoe County for Renown's alternate care site at this time.
Okay, good. I can just, foresee that happening as one of the ways to get over the hump of not enough ICU beds, if we can offload some people who just don't need to be in an ICU and may not even need to be in a care facility at all. They may simply need to be in a hotel room, for instance, so that they can stay isolated and not go anywhere. So it's good to know that you're at least thinking about it and have some thoughts. Thank you.
One of the other things that we are doing is we are anticipating the new nasopharyngeal swab that's going to be hopefully released in October. It's supposed to have the capacity to be able to do the single, the swab on both sides, but to be able to have the test run so it can look for influenza A, B, and COVID all at the same time. So we are anticipating that rather than us testing somebody for flu, then testing somebody for strep, and then testing somebody for COVID.
Yeah, we just purchased a module for a Sophia Quidel unit. Do you have that also? So we have that throughout our system, but they are working on the same thing. So they have a module for rapid influenza, but they've just added the rapid COVID test, and they also are working on a similar one that would do all of them. So that would be very helpful.
And then let me just add to what Jeannie was talking about, having an alternate care site for individuals. As we were going out and doing testing for homeless, we did work with Fish, and we do, in partnership with them, have one of their houses down there available to us should someone have a positive test to quarantine someone down there. So that's in the works.
Any other questions of this panel? Go.
So is there something that, just as the general public can do, is like take your temperature each morning? Is that a sign that people would know, maybe I don't feel ill yet, but if I took my temperature every day, it could be a signal not to go out or to get a test? I'm just looking for what else we could do. Great to wear masks, but you want to stop the infection or the quarantine sooner. So I'm just wondering if we should be messaging people to take their temperatures.
So yes, they can. Like at the health department, all employees take their temp every morning. And I do even on the weekends, just as a precaution. Also, I tell people it's, how are you feeling? Do you feel different than what you normally feel? Do you have a new cough that's come on suddenly. You know, people have constant coughs, or they know that they have an allergy cough and it's around this time. But have you developed a new cough that you don't usually have? That may be something that may trigger. I know, do you have a sore throat that has a sudden onset? I know from wearing masks, I seem to get a sore throat, and then I'm like, oh, do I have COVID now? So it's just being really in tune to how you're feeling. Do you have the body aches? Do you have a headache? What we're hearing from some of the COVID patients are that they know that onset of when that headache started. So it seems to be a headache that they remember when it started. So it's just being in tune to how you feel. And, you know, if you're just not feeling right, then stay home.
You know, for me, before I had any symptoms, headache or anything else, it was fatigue. So I had a couple of days of fatigue first that I attributed to allergies because I also have seasonal allergies, and there's yellow pollen blowing across my yard and 4 inches thick on my truck. And so I attributed it to allergies. So for me, it was fatigue first, and then I got a headache, and then a temperature. So, you know, but I think everybody is different. I think everybody is different.
Mm-hmm. But again, I think it's noticing how you feel. And for like me, for fatigue, it'd be, well, that's normal.
This was abnormal fatigue.
Okay, so, you know, that's looking abnormal.
It
You know,
was.
what's abnormal for you?
Any other questions?
And I was listening this morning as I was getting ready for work on the Today Show, and they had a really good tip for, you know, we're coming into the 4th of July, and there's going to be different festivities. And, you know, if you've got a barbecue, take a list of who's there. That will help our contact tracers. You know, if someone is positive, then we know exactly who was there and able to contact people. So just a little tip. And then I also just want to, again, thank you all for being very supportive. I know you're in a very tough position looking at the economics and the public health of this. And so I just appreciate your support. You're in some boards are not supportive of public health, but I really appreciate your support.
Very good. By the way, I just cut an article for the Carson City Hospital's annual report. Just part of our community duties to say, you know, pat them on the back too. All right. Any other questions? Keep letting us know if you need something. All right. Actually, let Nancy know. She'll get it done. We'll just talk about it. All right. Anything else on this one? Thanks again. Oh, I do have one question to you, Dustin. Do you study, to get an epidemiologist degree, do you study pandemics and epidemics?
So I guess the background of me, this is actually my 24th year here at the city this month. Not quite 24 years, but my undergraduate degree is in microbiology. And so when at the University of Idaho, and so when I was studying there, I took an epidemiology class, and it really interested me at looking at that, and then looking at the history of the microorganisms that we interact with every day. And then I started off as a health inspector here at Carson City, and was always intrigued with foodborne illness outbreaks, and then had the opportunity, after the September 11th, 2001 attacks, to expand the health department and be part of bringing local data to our community. So rather than, prior to this, we were always other in the state, and I just felt that Carson City should never be an other. And by doing this allowed us to capture our own data and really have our data here in Carson. And then thinking about in 2008, I went back to grad school at University of Nevada and got my master's in public health and emphasized in epidemiology. So I've always just been intrigued with our microorganism world, whether it be bacteria or viruses.
You got to be happy then.
But some days I'm happy, some days I'm not. Yeah.
One of our deputy district attorneys has got a master's in public health.
Yes, she does. And she's our representative at the health department, so it's very nice.
Okay, all right. Anything else? Sherry, you're up.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So to answer your question about the 10.2 million, I've given everybody until July 9th at the school district and the city to get me estimates. We have to call and get quotes. I don't know how much this plexiglass is going to cost. I assume everybody in the country is trying to get plexiglass installed. So I've given them until July 9th to get me estimates. And then I had a great call with NACO that I'll talk about a little bit about what they're doing with businesses, what all the counties in the Northern Nevada are looking at doing with businesses. We can agree and go with it. We can do our own thing. But I'll talk about that in a minute. I kind of wanted to give you the good sales tax information first because I almost fell on the floor when I saw this and then realized, no, this can't be the right report. But it was. Taxable sales in April were only down 5.4% for April, which astounded me. So looking at the 10 months ended, we're still up 5.91% over last year. Just looking at the 10 months ended. Of course, we're not out of the woods yet. We just heard cases are surging and we still have, things that could happen. I know in other states they're shutting down again. I have not heard any talk about that in Nevada yet, and hope that we don't. Hopefully this mask, if everybody wears their masks, we don't have to go there. But if we have 15%, up to 15% decrease in May and June, and those were reopening, so I anticipate those being a little better. But we can have up to 15% decrease in May and June and still hit the original budget of 2.2% over fiscal year 19 for C-Tax. So, and that was only possible because we had the extra 10% in January. We had such great C-Taxes at the beginning of the year that we've been able to weather so far the end of the year. We aren't so lucky in gas taxes. Gas taxes did not have that large surge at the beginning of the year. So my estimates are looking pretty close to what's going to happen in gas taxes. Sorry, Supervisor Barrett, I know this is near and dear to your heart. But it looks like the projections with a 35% decline in March and April for gas taxes is almost exactly on the mark.
Brad, is your light on? Brad?
Yeah, it is. Just going back to what you said about the plexiglass, we just got some bids in on plexiglass. And 2 months ago, a 4x8 sheet of plexiglass was selling for $30 to $35. Today, it's $300 to $400.
Yeah.
How to take advantage of a disaster.
Yeah. I mean, supply and demand, right? It's economics. So anyway, that's the dollar amount update. The interesting call that I had with NACO, what they're trying to put together, and Clark County already did this program. What they're trying to put together for businesses, they have 3 separate programs that they're doing in Clark County. They're doing one that is based on working capital replacement. I know you guys said you weren't interested in that. However, Clark County gave any business with 20 employees up to $10,000. They were expecting to get like 5,000 or 500 applications, and they only got 180 applications. So they got far less than they were expecting, and so they're planning on doing a second round of that. They worked with the National Business Development Council, so they had a nonprofit that actually looked at the applications, got last year's data versus this year's data. They had a bunch of points that they looked at for each business to determine exactly how much of that $10,000 they would get. And then they provided a spreadsheet to Clark County, and that's what they ended up paying. So it would be a service that we would pay for through the nonprofit. And that service is also reimbursable through the CARES Act. So we wouldn't basically have to pay for any of it. It would just reduce what we could do through the CARES Act. So I said there were 3 programs, so that's just the working capital program. The other program has to do with retrofitting, and that's the plexiglass and all the reimbursable, hand sanitizer and keeping what they had to do for their business to redesign it for this COVID-19. And so that was a reimbursement-based type program. And again, they worked with the Nevada Business Development Council to review applications, figure out how much they were going to give to each business, and then the spreadsheet provided to the city is what city is what we'd pay back, or the county. The last program was a rental assistance program, and that was mainly for people who paid rent, obviously, that were out of work and couldn't afford to pay rent, and they would work with the landlord and the person to figure out how much rent was due, and then the check would go straight to the landlord. So those were the 3 different programs that we're looking at, that the Northern Nevada area, because we're trying to do it together so we get economies of scale, and so we can maybe get a break on how much the Nevada Business Development Council is going to charge us. Now, NACO is helping to put this together as a group, so we would basically contract with NACO, and then NACO would do an RFP to find a nonprofit. It won't necessarily be National Business Development Council. That's just who Las Vegas used. But this is something I wanted your opinion on. If you're interested in joining the group in something like this, I can put together a recommendation as soon as we have numbers that come in. Probably, I'm hoping to bring something at the next board meeting.
Go ahead, Brad.
For me, Sherry, I won't speak for the rest of the board members, but for me, it's really hard to answer that question without knowing what the numbers are. So I'd rather give you my opinion after July 9th when we see what the numbers are and have an idea of how much might be available. But one of my concerns is that the business community is going to be forever changed by this virus. Certain businesses are going to no longer exist, and other businesses will change the way they have to do business. So it's really difficult for me to get on board with a program that is going to give money to businesses that potentially you're throwing it down the garbage disposal. How do you pick?
And like I said, there were a lot of different points. So one of the points was how long have they been in business? So have they been in business for 5, 10 years, or did they just start last year?
Yeah, I mean, we could debate that. You look at Lehman Brothers, who'd been in business for 100 and some years, and they disappeared overnight because of certain circumstances. And my point is that we're seeing certain circumstances again now, and we don't know what the future is going to look like for the business community. And unless I have a comfort level to know that the money, that we're getting the bang for the buck, that there isn't another place that we can put the money where we get a better return on it. So that's just my opinion. Again, I'd like to have this conversation after you have your estimates in and we know how much money we're actually even talking about. It could be a moot point. There may not be any money available.
Yeah, we talked internally about trying to hold $1 million to put into this, at least.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Stacy.
Yeah, I like the priorities that we sort of set out last time. I know that Clark County is also going to be giving money to nonprofits because I had a conference call with them, and they're fairly significant amounts. So I would like us to not ignore our nonprofits, like us to not ignore our school district, like us to seriously look at the meeting space the Board of Supervisors uses so that we can get back to, when it's appropriate, having as much of the public back in our rooms and our meetings as we can. So whether that's modifying this room or finding a Comstock room or using the theater, whatever it may be, that's a priority for me. And I agree with Brad. I think we need to know how those things sort of stack out. And it sounds like you're talking about taking a very small percentage of that money, putting it aside for this project, I could be on board with that. But again, I think we need to know what our city needs are, and I don't want to ignore those other needs that we talked about at the last meeting in terms of priority. So I'd like to hear about those as well as this. It sounds like we're only talking about the one thing, and I don't know if that was your intention, or.
No, we have
Okay.
not. We're still looking at all the priorities
Okay.
you guys set first.
Okay, then I'm good.
But this
Thank
was
you.
just a call that I had with NACO that I thought was very interesting, and all of our surrounding counties are doing it. So I wanted you guys to be aware
Okay.
that what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, again, based on what Brad said and where the money ends up, and I could get on board with setting some money aside to do that. I like the rent assistance idea a lot. I think there might be a real need for that in our community. So that's my probably 5 cents worth.
Supervisor Barrett.
Thank you. I've always been pro-business, but I don't think this circumstance is one where I am under these circumstances. I think it goes to the bottom.
I didn't hear that. I'm sorry, John, I couldn't
I
hear.
think it goes to the bottom of my list, too. The problem is, it won't be enough to help that much, and everyone will come in saying, let's get help. I don't know if this program would be that way. But my sense is there's plenty of public need that is designed to spread it through the community for everyone, because there's needs everywhere. And so I think businesses are hurting. I think people need help, but this isn't my priority at this juncture.
Okay. Sherry, anything more?
That's all I had today.
Good.
So,
Mayor-elect, go.
Nancy, Sherry, did we by chance get with the chamber, anybody to, Ronnie had mentioned she could put out a Survey Monkey, because I'm not saying where the business is on the priority of everything, but without business, the continued failure of the entire community will occur. So I don't want to be naive in the fact that we don't have to support businesses or have them continue in our community, because all those other services will get taxed even more. So I think we have to be cognizant of the whole picture and the whole piece of pie here. And so I also agree with Brad and Stacy, though, that I just need a little more data to be able to make a good decision here. But I would love to hear from our businesses of what it is that they need, because I still think the plexiglass ordering, the items that we could get an economy of scale our own selves by ordering, whatever, 5,000 gallons of hand sanitizer, they can't even get it because they order too small, right? And they're going to be the one piece of plexiglass is going to be $400 and they're not going to get serviced. So I guess I want to look in that arena. Is there something we can do to globally help the business community in Carson City benefit by having like a joinder contract or even anything like that? Is there some purchasing power we can help with? And so I don't want to miss that opportunity.
Okay, we can try to get something out through Survey Monkey maybe next week. My concern, NACO is looking for just an estimate of if we do want to join these programs, how much we're going to put in there so they can work with and start doing the RFP and get the nonprofit and start moving this forward. So we have such a small time to spend this money that that we can't really wait until November and see how much we have left. So and I'm not saying we have to make a decision today, but you know, we can get that information. We'll try to get a Survey Monkey out next week, is what I'm hoping we can do.
I would ask the chamber and you, I don't know, maybe we can do it faster, like you said, so we can have better data, because maybe they already have money under all the other federal acts that are out there for them, and they're going to come back and answer that they don't have some great need. I don't know the answer. So
there was one lady on the call from a small business, maybe it was a small business administration, and she had mentioned that different businesses need different things, that, you know, some businesses need that retrofit help, And some businesses don't. They need more, loss of money help. So the way they did the Vegas application was they could apply for whichever one they were most interested in. It was like a box they could check. And every program had a limit as to how much you could help each business or entity.
And Stephanie and I are meeting with Ronnie from the chamber at 12:30 today, so.
Perfect.
Should have some more information.
Oh, perfect.
We've got, Brad, is your light on? I got John. Yeah, go ahead, John.
Oh, I just wanted to say I'm certain that the mayor-elect didn't mean to imply that I'm being naive. I just feel the way I do about the situation because I think there are unending needs in the public sector. But I'm not naive about how the world works, Mayor-elect.
Yeah, and I think this is a great conversation. I would use for an example the restaurant community, which is probably one of the businesses that is being impacted the most. And they could certainly use the money. But the truth is, it isn't going to be enough to save a restaurant. It's one-shot money. We'd just be throwing the money away. And that's just the reality. So I would rather see the money go towards something that has more of a permanent effect. And if that is, the city stocking up on certain supplies that we can then donate or pass on to businesses, I would be on board with that. But as far as offering stimulus money or grant money or donations of money to businesses, I just don't see that it's actually going to help. To me, it's putting a Band-Aid on an amputation, It's a valiant attempt and it gets you nowhere.
Okay. Anybody else? Anybody? Sherry?
We're going to continue to work on getting estimates from everybody, obviously the top priorities, and then we'll let NACO know that we potentially could have some interest, but we're still working on it.
Sherry, give thanks to your group over there. I know everybody's been working night and day to keep things humming along, and your charge is to make sure that the sales tax numbers come in.
Okay, thanks.
Right? You set a high bar on this month, so okay, all right. Anybody else? All right, thank you, Sherry. All right. Let's move on to Board of Supervisors, non-action items. Anybody? Got anything? Anybody on this final one? Okay, let's take up final concluding I think that's where we are. Final concluding public comment. Desi, is anybody on the line?
Mr. Mayor, we do not have anyone waiting for public comment at this time.
I couldn't hear that.
We do not have anyone waiting for public comment at this time.
Okay. I don't know if we've got public comment here, and I don't, Dan, you could help me. Can we take public comment here, or do we have to do it online because everybody else is doing it that way? Just tell me which way. I don't mind doing it any way you want.
That's the notice that's provided on the notice of agenda for public comment. It's supposed to be called in. So with IT's statement on the record that we don't have anyone waiting on the phone, I think it's good to.
I couldn't hear that one.
I think it's okay for you to adjourn at this point.
If we do what? I'm sorry.
It's fine. Let me go ahead and take off my mask so you can hear me better, Mayor. Now, with IT's statement on the record that we don't have anyone waiting online to provide public comment, it's fine for you to close public comment at this time.
Okay, I don't know if I've got a public comment behind you or not. I don't know, but that's why I was going to say, okay, good. All right. Anything else? Anybody on public comment? Nobody? Desi, going once? Twice? 3 times? Okay. Unless there's an objection, then are we ready to adjourn? We're adjourned until the next regularly scheduled meeting of the Board of Supervisors. All right.